it's insane to think about how an app that started with invest like a politician as a slogan could turn into a full-on investment platform with $1.5 billion invested.
Welcome to RunRate. Our guest today is Chris Josephs, co-founder of Autopilot, the investing platform behind viral products like the Pelosi tracker that help turn social behavior and internet culture into a new category of investing. Chris and the team built one of the most viral products in finance by tapping into a much bigger shift happening online, people trusting people over institutions. Purposeful Venture Partners, my firm, is an investor in Autopilot. I must disclose that. We've had a front row seat watching Chris and the team build the business. We came in about a year ago. So it's been an exciting run. Today, we're going to go deep on how Autopilot was actually built, get into the internet virality, because you've been a big part of that personally, social investing in general, and what it takes to build an internet native business at scale. So Chris, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. I think it'd be helpful for folks that don't know as much about Autopilot.
Yep.
I got to know the business in diligence, invested in the business ultimately, but also set up my own tracker. The tracker that I invested in was the Pelosi tracker, which I think is what you're probably best known for.
That's the iconic one.
Would love to tell the listeners a little bit about, what Autopilot is. And then we can get into the Pelosi tracker and how you got to be known for that.
Yep, great. Yeah, let's do it, because I think the Pelosi tracker is the beginning piece of, I think, like what you invested in a year ago. It's much more than what it started with 5 or 6 years ago. But as you've been saying, so Autopilot essentially is the first marketplace of stock pickers vetted by performance, where you can go onto our platform, find someone who has shared their personal portfolios, shared the conviction behind their portfolios, and shared the actual stock picks and the allocation and what they do. And then you can just simply connect your personal brokerage and invest alongside them. So it started off with the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker, and we can get into how the origination story there, but we have a portfolio of her that mirrors her personal portfolio based on her filings, and people can connect their personal Robinhood accounts, allocate some money, and then whatever stock she buys or sells, they buy or sell automatically as well. And we're kind of building it mostly for the people that just, don't have time or don't want to pick their own stocks. I think there's a lot of people out there that struggle with this. And the slogans that we've been going back and forth on is like, you probably shouldn't be overthinking what stocks to buy. Why do that when you can just now have this platform of vetted real-time investors and then just have them trade for you? The rich, it's a weird thing to always kind of describe it this way, but like the uber wealthy, the classic thing, like they have this in the form of hedge funds. When they have a lot of money, they just go to hedge funds to have the hedge funds pick stocks for them. But the average everyday person, someone like me, we really only have 3 options. We have do it on our own, which a lot of us are guessing. We have put it in a passive ETF, which isn't really that bad, but I think people still should own individual stocks. Or you have financial managers. And financial managers, that's a whole different game of like, who are these people? Like, they're strangers.
I think what got me excited about it initially is exactly what you're saying. A big miss for me personally. I've never spent enough time to get really good at investing in public stocks. I have a good friend of mine that manages money for me at UBS. But as far as getting into trading directly, I've speculated a little bit on Robinhood. But when I met you all with Autopilot, in the idea of buying the tracker and then tracking behind, whether it's Nancy Pelosi, who knows where she gets her information, what she trades on. Seems like her book has done quite well.
Yeah,
investing behind that, or investing behind a friend that you know is a really good trader, and being able to track and directly trade with them, for me, makes all the sense in the world. Coupled with the fact that it's like a new social version of investing that just didn't exist before you all came along and pioneered this.
I think it's just the next evolution of retail investing. I think if you think from the 2000s to 2010s, pre-Robinhood, there was Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, and you would have to pay $5 or $6 per trade to even put a trade through. So you weren't trading at all. I think when Robinhood in 2010, after the financial crisis came on the scene, they essentially democratized access to it. But if you think about the analogy there, if you're thinking about it as a pool, they broke down the fence to get into the pool. But the problem is all the retail investors, all of us, we all dove into the deep end, but we didn't really know what we were doing out there. So people were struggling. They didn't know what to do, what to buy, what to sell. They end up guessing. And they end up guessing because they read something on Reddit. They read something on Twitter. They heard it from a friend. But when that stock they buy with no conviction goes down 5%, they second guess the whole thing. They sell it. And then next thing you know, they see the thing go up. It turns into a stressful, anxiety-induced situation. It's like, why am I even doing this? I think the natural evolution of where this goes from the 2020s on, and that's kind of when we started, is just investing alongside people. And it's the same way that you described it. The Pelosi stock tracker, the Dr. Lira Lopez AI portfolios. There's no reason why you can't just have one of these guys pick your stocks instead of you just doing it on your own.
That's where, for me as a consumer, you make one decision. You're trusting a basket and a tracker.
Yep.
And then I see in my Robinhood account, the auto trade's happening. I don't have to worry about Google being up 10% or down 5% and getting stressed about it. I'm just putting in the tracker and letting it ride. And, for me, again, we'll get into it, but I did the Pelosi tracker and, so far so good.
Yeah. Her book has done quite well.
It's tracking. So let's go all the way back. I saw that you were on the Tucker Carlson podcast, and you made a comment. If someone had told you you'd be running something that was known for the Pelosi tracker and trading against different sets of books in this way, you would have thought that they were insane 5 years ago, right? Or 5 years before you got started. I believe you were living in Bali after you left the New York kind of hustle. Yeah. You became a snowboard instructor in New Hampshire, which is, fascinating. How did you transition? Like, how did that happen? Did you get a little bit burned out? You needed a break and the idea came to you and Brian, or how was it formed initially?
So the long story was, I graduated from Villanova in finance. I've always had a passion for stock investing.
Jalen Brunson, baby.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's go Knicks.
Yeah,
the whole team now, basically.
The whole team. And I went to, I was there when they won. Yeah. So I've seen them for years. Nice. But I quit my New York City. I started working in finance, and I quit my New York City job to move to Bali and work on a small e-commerce company. And while I was in Bali, I would, you would wake up, you'd go surfing, you'd go to the gym, then you go to the cafe and do your work. And while I was at work, working in these cafes, I would see people constantly be trading stocks, just doing the day trading, the futures trading, but they were doing it together. They were sitting next to each other. They were looking at indicators. They were talking. And it was the first moment where I realized, there is some sort of social aspect to investing. It's not just, you going and buying Apple every week and you not telling anyone. Mm-hmm. We're moving into this direction of social investing, collaborative investing. So that was the first sign that there was something there. When I moved back to Boston during COVID, I was a snowboard instructor during COVID, and then COVID essentially stopped all snowboard instructing. I moved back in to my parents' attic pretty much, and I was scrolling on LinkedIn, and my co-founder now, Brian, at the time, he built out a very, very small API layer for his Robinhood, where he just made a post saying hey, I built out a way for I can share my personal Robinhood account with other people. Would anyone be interested in using it? Would anyone be interested in growing it, helping it? So I DM'd him. I was like, hey, this is an interesting idea. You're friends with my friends. I think I could help grow this idea because there's something to this social, this collaborative sort of investing that I think can grow. He answered the DM. We hopped on a call, and next thing you know, that was the start of, at the time, our first pivot called Iris.
What year was this?
This is 2020.
2020. Okay.
Yep, 2020. Pre-Pelosi tracker, pre-Autopilot, pre-everything. And what Iris was at the time was a way to essentially just follow your friend's stock trades. So if you had a Robinhood, I had a Fidelity, and he had a Webull, you could connect it to our app, follow your friend's portfolios, and then anytime you make a trade, you get a little push notification.
And at this time, because it sounds, from a consumer perspective, it sounds fairly obvious now, this did not exist at that time in any capacity.
It didn't. We had a competitor out there called Common Stock, and they were kind of doing the same thing. There's been this idea of social investing for a long time. It's just never really picked up. And like even right now, there's still no like Autopilot is a little bit different, but there is no pure social investing layer. And the lesson that we have in that is it's really hard to compete with social media platforms. It's just a game that you don't want to play. So when we're trying to build out a social investing platform for your friends, you're competing with iMessage because your friends are talking in your iMessage group chat all the time. When you're trying to build out a feed, you're competing with Twitter and Reddit. And it just was too hard of a game. This is what we eventually realized. But at the time, it was the first way for anyone to get access and like visibility, transparency into their friends' stock trades. And it purely started out as friends. What it turned into was more. That's when the Pelosi tracker was the first kind of like wow moment for all of us to be like, oh, there's something actually more to this whole thing. It's not, no one wants to follow your friend's stock trades if your friends suck. Right. You want to follow the
You also
top
want to make
people.
money while you're following the trades.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to follow the people that are good. And then on top of that, when the world was opening up after COVID, and I'm skipping around a little bit, but you not only want to know who's actually good, you just want to automate your trades with them.
That's right.
And it was like the natural evolution of Iris to Autopilot was so obvious to all of us when we were doing it. But at the time, if you remember, this is pre-2022 crash.
Yeah.
Everyone had a stimulus check. They were all going to Robinhood, and it was fun. It was what everyone wanted to do.
I think there's also a spectrum. Like if I take myself, I know peers of mine that are more educated in the markets, so they're better than I am inherently. Yeah. All the way to, the allure of the Pelosi tracker is she may have information that she's privy to that she then trades against. I don't have any facts to support that, but the allure is someone that's closer to information, that has an insider's knowledge. If you can be a part of that and kind of trade with that, I mean, a lot of people are interested in that arb, right? So that's kind of the spectrum of it. And so back on the Pelosi tracker kind of kernel and idea, because that, for you, and I know you do a lot of the media for the company and you're out in front, that's been a home run.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people
home run.
Have known you as the company behind the Pelosi tracker.
Yep.
I think the awareness is like, my wife, like everyone, like 9 out of 10
knows,
people.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 people know about the Pelosi stock tracker.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, for a private company of your size, like that's insane awareness. It clicked that you could do something behind following more prominent people. And then the Pelosi tracker obviously took off within that vertical.
Yeah.
I guess take us through, like, how did that?
Yeah, so it sort of happened like that. When we had the layer of Iris, which was, again, you could follow your friends' stock trades, so you had little mini profiles.
Is this hundreds of people at the time? Thousands of people?
No, 200,000, 300,000. So it was all organic. We weren't doing any paid or anything like that. But like the simplest way to think about it is like if you have an Instagram account, your friends can follow your Instagram account. They can see your photos. On Iris, you had your trading account connected with your Robinhood or your Schwab, and you could follow your friends' portfolios. You could see the performance. You could see kind of the trades that they're doing. When I'm not the engineer. I was the full guy in charge of growth. I was the guy trying to figure out how do we get users to this platform. And when I was scrolling through Twitter, I would see, viral threads about Nancy Pelosi stock trades. I would see viral threads about politician stock trades. And at the time, no one knew that this was a thing. So like now, 9 out of 10 people know about the Pelosi stock tracker. Before, no one really knew that politicians were even able to trade. I didn't know that they were able to trade. I didn't know that it was as bad as it was. In 2021 was when we started realizing that there actually is something here to building a way to get notified of your next trades. Because it's one thing to be like, oh, I can call her out on Twitter saying she shouldn't do that. But it's at the other thing, it's like, oh, actually, if she's going to keep doing it, let's build a way for us to kind of actually make some money alongside Nancy Pelosi. She's the Speaker of the House. She's trading $500 million a year of trades. Why not just see what would happen if you start mirroring your trades? So the idea, the origination actually came onto the app before it developed into the social media piece. Okay. We rebuilt her portfolio as a profile on Autopilot. And then I went to TikTok. I got behind the camera and I figured out how to do I didn't know how to do any of this, but I figured out how to make TikToks. And I was like, hey, Nancy Pelosi has been making all these trades. She's going viral for it. we built the first way to get notified of her next trade. So people would go and they would download the app, they would follow her portfolio so that the next trade she makes, they get a little push notification and they can go and manually copy her at the time. And that was the first evolution of the Pelosi stock tracker. It actually started on the Iris app before it developed into the social media platform.
And you can recreate her portfolio because she ultimately, any politician has to publicly list their trades. There's some timing there.
Yep.
It's within a certain time period they have to post.
Yep.
And so you, as now Autopilot, recreated that portfolio
At the time, Iris,
and allowed people to track.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And if we fast forward to today a little bit for a second, you have both Autopilot run accounts like the Pelosi tracker, but you've now allowed creators to come on and post and sync their own trades. And then users like me can track any one of those, buy a tracker, and auto trade with either the Pelosi tracker or any
another,
of these new.
Yep. And like the main thesis of like at the time, Iris was you want to follow your friends and the best investors. Now it's just purely like our Autopilot's mission. We are trying to find the best investors on Main Street so that the rest of America can trade alongside them. Nancy Pelosi, politicians, they're just one piece of it. You know, you got the hedge fund 13Fs. Leopold is up like I think 80% since we started just 3 months ago. And the way that you discover the best investors out there is you create a way for them to showcase their skill set, showcase their prowess. And by doing that, we have allowed people to go in, connect, and launch their own personal portfolios, their own actual trading strategies, so that they can be tracked publicly. And then so that someone like me, my girlfriend, and all the people following us on Instagram can go in and trade alongside and have them pick stocks for them too. The Pelosi tracker, it just is a perfect representation of there are good people out there that trade stocks. They outperform the markets consistently. There are people that can do it. Autopilot is a platform to find those people and then democratize the way for the average everyday person to have them trade their stocks for you.
Just to give perspective, I don't know if you have the exact stats, but Pelosi, over her time in Congress, has exceeded the markets by X. I mean, she's absolutely crushed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whether she happens to be a phenomenal stock picker, whether she's getting it from however that happens, like she's done very well.
Yeah. So I always kind of laugh at no one can outperform the market. It's like, well, Nancy Pelosi does. It's like we've consistently seen it. She started in Congress and she was worth 20 million. Now she's worth 250 million. She crushed it on Visa. She's crushed it on Tesla. She's crushed it on Nvidia. She's crushed it on CrowdStrike. It's like the examples are pretty out there. That it has happened at a consistent basis where either she's knows thing we don't, or she's just really good and she has the skill set, or her husband technically, but it's all the same.
It's kind of the age old. So a lot of our community, kind of my peer network, I'm sure familiar with Bill Ackman, familiar with Ken Griffin. We've heard the backstories of how they got started. Small amount of money, got punched in the face a bunch, got bigger. They're now running multi-billion-dollar hedge funds. Presumably, with Autopilot as a platform, the next Bill Ackman, the next Ken Griffin, like these are folks who could start and start growing a book. And because if they are good, they will get highlighted by their success. More and more people start to buy those trackers. I mean, this is how they can get started.
And we already have proof points of it. So we have a guy named Peter Wolf who on Twitter, he would share his stock picks, the classic, guy that has 5,000 followers. He launched his trackers on Autopilot probably 2 or 3 years ago. Fast forward to today, he has around 200 million trading alongside him. He's probably making via his revenue cut, because they get paid for it. He's probably making hundreds of thousands through it. And he's up around like 200%, 160% or something like that. And it's a win-win-win for everyone, because before he would have had to, if you were to want to launch his own strategy, his own hedge fund, his own ETF, it would have been really expensive. It would have been really time consuming. And you need to know the right people. You need to go get the capital. With Autopilot, he just simply put the portfolios up, focused on the one thing that he actually cared about, which was doing research and trading. And the performances speaks for itself. And then the average everyday person, they're winning because it's like, why would I pick my own stocks when I can just follow Peter Wolf? That is like the true kind of fundamental first principle idea of why we're excited with what we're doing. We're disrupting the space because we think that in the future, in 4 to 5 years, it will be dumb for the everyday person to be picking their own stocks. Like, why pick your stocks when you can just have someone do it for you on autopilot?
I mean, 4 to 5 years, I feel that way today. Like for
Yeah,
me to
fair.
just speculate on stocks, like I know enough and I watch the market. But again, on the public side, my background, my experience is more investing in private companies. Once they go public, there's a whole nother set of considerations and timing and the markets and earnings. It's just a different game. So I think that's super exciting as an opportunity for folks that want to get into the financial services game. Anyone that aspires to want to own their own hedge fund, let's say, what a great way to get started. Let's take a step back to, you have been directly involved in the virality of autopilot in general. When I think about the markets today and when we invest via pari passu in different companies, you have the product and the product vision, which obviously you want to be connected against the founder and kind of what they aspire to be, short, medium, long term. You have the execution of that, which you need the right team, you need to be disciplined, et cetera. And then the third bucket is, distribution, marketing, awareness, right? Like if you are the best product, but nobody knows about you, it actually doesn't matter, especially in today's world. So I think investors sometimes don't focus enough on that last piece. When I met you and I met Brian, we were going through the diligence on the company, what was abundantly clear is that you guys had smashed that bucket 3. Like the awareness for the Pelosi tracker on a relative basis, given your size as like a Series A company, was through the roof. And so you've outperformed in that. If you were unpacking that for other folks who are listening that maybe are running, companies of certain size and scale, was it the kernel of the idea with the Pelosi tracker that just took off? Was it that plus execution on different platforms? Like, how would you unpack that
Yeah.
success?
So I think it was mostly just the idea of the Pelosi stock tracker being able to translate into a way to make money. So like we have a team now of around 8 on our marketing team. And like I've developed this skill of like teaching them how to make content. And you realize it's a formula. If you understand what works on social media, it's either, it's you get laid, it's you make money, or you get entertained. That's really it.
Yeah.
If you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. With us, we saw, the entertainment idea of the Pelosi stock tracker. It's funny, but also it's the make money part that is also really interesting. So when we were making the content, when we initially started, we had a little bit of this idea of product-led marketing inspired by Steve Jobs, where the product becomes the advertisement. That was the Pelosi stock tracker. So we had the foundation where any screenshot we could take from the app would translate well on social media. And, there's a lot of examples that do this. Polymarket does it well. Kalshi, Robinhood does it well. They have you see them everywhere. That's the product-led marketing piece. The virality piece, the part that I think was able to get us, we've probably done 5 or 6 billion of impressions at this point, is the way that we framed the Pelosi stock tracker as the authority in the space. So when we were writing the content and we were doing this for any aspiring, consumer founder or company out there, you need to kind of like frame your product and frame your account as the authority in the space. You don't want to speak like you're just like everyone else. You want to make sure that you're the halo above the whole thing. So when we were thinking about, how do we tweet about the Pelosi stock tracker, there were 2 obvious ways to go. One is the long-term, serious, formal, research-driven, essentially an investigative journalist route. The other one is fun, viral, meme every time, Nancy Pelosi is insider trading, hysteria. We went with the investigative journalist way because I think we saw over time that is the one that can create the most trust. We could have probably got more views and had more fun and maybe even more clicks with the other route.
Interesting.
But going the professional route, I think, paid dividends because once you get up to that level, you could sell people the product, the Autopilot product, in a way that they would trust it. And I think that was a good key thing that Brian and I did and the whole team did, where we really focused on like, we're not going to be a meme account. We're going to be a investigative journalist account, and we're not going to try and clickbait people into using this product.
Yeah.
The other piece that really worked for us is you have to make the content translate to all the channels. So the tweet turns into the Instagram post, which turns into the TikTok script, which turns into the Instagram reel, which turns into the YouTube short, which turns into the long form YouTube video.
Yep.
All of that with one piece of content. That's how you can be seen everywhere, and that's how we've been able to. I think we have a 1.5 million followed Twitter account. We have a 1.5 million followed Instagram account. It's really rare to see the virality across all.
It is rare to have that parity. I was watching Mr. Beast. We had invested in Beast Industries as well. He did an interview with, I think it was New York Times DealBook. He was talking about how he was just obsessed with getting views. His main channel is YouTube, but then he also uses TikTok. He uses Instagram as feeder accounts.
Yeah.
He was getting into a bit of the psychology behind, what gets the clicks, what gets people excited. And then he had a video that he created 10 years ago. And then kind of fast forward, and he was getting, 50 views 10 years ago, and he just, stuck with it, went deep on it. Now, when you had that success and things started to inflect, I would assume people would try to copy you, and someone would try to come out with, Pelosi Tracker #2. Did that happen? Did it not happen?
It happened on the product side. So we had a couple copycat companies pop up. And what's funny is we've never really raised that much money. We've only raised 15 million total, which at our scale is crazy. Even with the amount of distribution we've gotten, we've had competitors come and they've raised 30, 40, $50 million rounds. They've tried to build what we've done. They've tried to do it on social media, but it's just really hard to break through if you're not actually good at the skill set of content creation. The content creation, in my opinion, these days is the bread and butter. If you can't do that on the consumer facing side, you can have the best product ever. It's not going to work. It's not going to cut through. And that's only happening more now because people are so tuned out on ads. Everywhere you go, you see an ad, to the point where my belief in what we're betting on is we're trying to bet on this word of mouth, this consumer peer-to-peer growth channels that haven't really developed formally. But I think that's the future of it. I don't think it's going to be coming from Instagram ads. And also, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be coming from social media accounts because of the way that the algorithm has been changing. People don't follow anymore. They just swipe. So it's becoming harder and harder to do.
The authenticity of what you built and how you built it also comes through.
Yeah.
I think when there's copycat scenarios, they don't have even if they have more firepower because they've raised capital, if the authenticity is not there, the consumer side can feel that.
Yep.
So back to DC for a second. Pelosi's been the focus. Have you done trackers of other politicians?
Yep.
Have you ever met Nancy Pelosi? Has anyone ever reached out? I know
No.
you're kind of in that world.
So we know that the people on Capitol, they know of us. I've chatted with a number of politicians specifically around getting them banned from trading.
And do you want them to get banned? Because it seems like if
We
they got
do,
banned,
we
that would
do,
be bad
but
for business.
Yeah, it would be not good for business. Well, I mean, a year ago, it would have been really bad for business, but now we'd be fine.
You're saying that because of the amount of your business that's tied up in the Pelosi tracker, which has now gotten less than it was.
So a year ago, right now we have around $1.5 billion of assets under management. A year ago, we probably had around 700 million. 500 million, 450 million of that was to the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker. Now she's around 550 million, but she's a much smaller piece.
Because the fear there, just to double click, is she could leave Congress.
Well, she is. She's retiring at the end of the year.
She could die. I mean, she's what,
84?
Yeah. So all of that potential tracker capital is at risk.
Exactly.
And so you've actively diversified your book away from that. You said 1.5 billion now.
Yep.
Of AUM.
Yeah. So it's insane to think about how an app that started with invest like a politician as a slogan could turn into a full-on investment platform with $1.5 billion invested. It shouldn't be like that, but that's just how I think this world works. We gravitate towards the classic thing that Elon says, the most entertaining outcome is the most likely outcome.
I love that, yeah.
It's the most entertaining idea to think that a sitting politician can outperform hedge fund managers, but it's also the most likely outcome because that's just how it is. Why would it not be like that? If you really sit down and think about it, they're the ones making the laws. It works.
And so you would like that? You would like politicians to be banned from trading?
We would want politicians banned from trading because it fits with our kind of ethos of like when we initially started, we wanted to bring trust and transparency back into the institutions. It started out with the politicians because no one trusts politicians. No one still trusts politicians, to be honest. But we thought if we could do our part to bring at least transparency, show a win for the American people versus, the people in DC, that would allow us to kind of like jump on to the next thing, which is taking on the wealth advisors, the financial advisors that we think there are a lot out there that are shady in the practices of what they do, but it's a walled garden and there's no visibility and transparency into it. That's like the way that we want to continue operating. That's the pure fundamental ethos of like the why of what we're doing it. We're trying to bring trust and transparency into institutions, specifically institutions that don't show you their cards.
And being an investor in the Pelosi tracker myself, I actually don't know. Do you track directly any other politicians?
Yes. So we have a number of different politicians. So
how do you pick which ones? I mean,
we've picked the ones that trade the most. So again, like
you can see that because they have to publish.
Yeah. So we don't go and pick, all Republicans. We don't pick all Democrats. We pick the ones that trade the most, and then we allow the leaderboard, the platform of Autopilot, to showcase who are the best. So we have Nancy Pelosi. We used to have Dan Crenshaw and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They've moved on. We used to have Mark Wayne Mullen, who is now the Secretary of Homeland Security or something like that. We have Donald Trump's personal portfolio. We have the White House Asset Management personal portfolio, which is up around 60%. And next week, we're going to be launching 3 to 4 more politicians that are specific to their own individual trades. John Fetterman, Gil Cisneros, and 2 others, I think.
So today, if you want to invest like Donald Trump, you can track his personal book, his trades that have to be published.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Today, you now can trade in the same stocks that Trump trades in.
AOC, not a focus?
AOC doesn't trade. So, no, AOC is not a focus. Credit to her, though. She's been a big voice in trying to get them banned. So, she's been one of the few that has vocally called it out.
We're in New York. Mamdani. Does
no
he do any
Mamdani,
trading?
so you can't know what the mayors trade.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know if you've gone through this, but the politicians that trade the most, which are the ones that you ultimately track, is there any correlation with them having a history of trading, or they started trading basically once they're in and they may have some good intel?
So not that we haven't seen much of a correlation. What we have seen, though, is like a lot of them are the trading is like their spouses, their kids. This is why this topic is a little bit complicated because
they could get banned for them, but they could still ban in their kids. They could still trade in their kid or wife's account.
Well, so this is why the ban on congressional stock trading is actually really complex, because if they ban it, they ban their kids and their spouses. So if you were working on Wall Street and your wife, joins Congress, I don't know what you would do. You wouldn't be allowed to stock trade. And I think that's like where it becomes constitutionally questionable, and why I think this ban actually is more complex than it sounds on paper.
Sure. Are there any restrictions today on what?
No.
Nothing.
No.
You're sitting in the room, there's something coming, we're passing a law, they can trade on any of it.
They can trade on any of it, which is insane to say, but yeah, they can buy and sell anything they want. To my knowledge, they can buy and sell anything they want.
Wow. Unbelievable. So outside of, I guess, the Pelosi generally, any things that you've done in the history of the company from a marketing perspective that you've seen the most virality? I was reading a story about, UFC. There's just different instances where you were able to push that and get really heightened visibility.
Yeah, so I think so we launched Autopilot from the pivot of Iris in 2023. We hit number 2 in the App Store, and it was all with the slogan, "Invest like a politician." Nancy Pelosi was the most popular one. We've been riding this kind of political movement, the come in and if you can't beat them, join them, trade like a politician, through probably up until the last few months. The reason being is Nancy Pelosi, she's been the best. She's been the poster boy for it. She'll be retiring at the end of the year. The invest like a politician idea, I think we've gotten a lot of the people that would be interested in using it already in the door. The next wave that we've been seeing is the AI, the AI wave. And what this idea is really unique is there's a lot of really, really smart people out there that know how to prompt engineer the different language learning models in a way that no one, not the average everyday person, can do it. And through Autopilot, they put the AI portfolios on the platform.
True.
And then now you can actually go and have Claude invest for you. You can have ChatGPT, you can have Grok, you can have DeepSeek. And that's this next wave that we're seeing recently of like people want AI investing for them. They think it's just like there's this edge to it that they wouldn't get from their own trading.
And so for me, if I'm interested in the idea of AI being excellent at trading, but I don't want to set up my own agents and go on Robinhood and figure it out myself, I come to Autopilot and I just track someone that's doing exactly that. That exists today.
Yes, exactly.
And I think when I bought my tracker, I think it was $100.
Yep.
And so you buy the tracker and then you invest whatever capital you want behind that tracker. And then that does the auto trading on whatever size that book is.
Exactly. Yeah. So if I want Claude to invest for me, I go on to Autopilot, I download it, I connect to my personal Robinhood or public account, and say I got 20 grand in it and I want to allocate 10 grand of it to Claude. I just allocate that 10 grand. Claude then just trades that 10 grand. It buys and sells, and it stays directly in my own Robinhood. So it doesn't leave my control. I can go into my Robinhood. I can go into Autopilot. I can see it in both different spots. Yeah. But the beauty of it is now anytime Claude makes a trade, that 10 grand trades automatically.
Amazing. And, you know, in your view, you're obviously sitting in the co-pilot seat here, but how big does this get? I mean, you guys are at 1.5 billion of AUM.
Yeah.
That's, you know, call it a double from last year-ish, right? So you guys are growing exceptionally fast. What are you seeing? Does that trend continue? Do more and more people get behind the Peter Wolf idea that you're relatively unknown, but you're an excellent trader? Yep. You should be getting more visibility on the platform.
Yep. I think it grows in two ways. And, you know, in the last month, we've seen the J curve of it. It's just like, I think it's really starting to get adopted more and more of this idea of you don't have to pick your own stocks, you just have people do it. But to answer your question of where it does grow, I think it has a lot of room to run. First, we have around 2,000 to 3,000 people that have applied to launch their own strategies. And these are YouTubers, these are ex-hedge fund guys, these are aspiring hedge fund guys. The idea of being able to launch your own fund in minutes is very attractive versus the current alternatives of launching an ETF or a hedge fund. It's just the first way to do this in the world in a regulatory way. And I think that's very attractive for the supply side. The demand side, though, the people that want to come in, I think this only gets bigger and bigger because one, you know, you probably have your Robinhood, and then you said you have your UBS being actively managed, and then maybe you probably have some money elsewhere. I think that we can continue to increase wallet share and go from the fund money of your Robinhood to, you know, maybe your Roth IRA account, because your Roth IRA could be individual stocks. You're not going to get taxed on it. That's a bigger pool. Then you can go to the retirement accounts where we're not necessarily picking stocks in your retirement account, but you can use someone on Autopilot that you can find and have them manage your retirement account. We then can get into prediction markets where, you know, there are top people on Polymarket. Why not follow a top Polymarket trader? I think the demand for access to alpha is only going to continue to increase. And through Autopilot, we're going to be the platform that captures that demand. And I don't know how else you can compete with it unless you have a transparent marketplace of it all in one spot.
I mean, conceptually, large hedge funds, you know, they have a similar strategy that they're deploying for themselves, right? If you were thinking about the large banks and their private wealth groups, they have analysts, they have strategy, they're going out and doing this. This is effectively opening that up and crowdsourcing it and then sharing it socially. So you're making the bet that outside of the big institutions, there are really smart people with really great ideas that generate great returns, and opening that up for people to effectively invest behind them.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's literally, and I don't even think it's a bet. I think it's obvious. There are people out there that do this. The problem is there's just no way to find them, and there's no way to have them. There's no way to work with them. It's like they both want the same thing, but there's no layer to be able to do it.
Are you seeing a lot of diversity on the platform as far as like if you had the Nancy Pelosi tracker, you got Peter Wolf, I think our friend Hank Liquidity has his own
Yep.
tracker, right? How are you feeding the different options to investors, and what's that range of diversity look like?
Yeah. So the two biggest use cases of what we've seen on the fund launching side has been thematic based. Like Liquidity has a Finance Bro index and he's got a Basic Becky index, and they track the different trends that go on in his expertise. We see that on the thematic side. The other side of it, though, is people with their own, they treat it like a hedge fund. Peter Wolf, for example, he doesn't have a theme. He just invests in things that he believes in, and he's absolutely crushed it. The diversity across that is probably pretty big because there's always so many themes, which the themes are all right, because like there are ETF thematic ETFs, like there's a lot with that. The the hedge fund style stock picking that's now on Autopilot, I think, is so unique and cool because it's their actual personal stock picks, and you can see how much money they have invested in those own strategies. The challenge, though, is how do you create discoverability for them? So if I download the app and I see 5 different personal stock portfolios that are all up 40%, how do I choose which one to follow? Or how do I choose which one to autopilot? That's the next wave that we're building out. We're building out a way to try and find, we're building out a way to try and connect them with the investor that we think suits them best. Yeah. We haven't built that yet. Right now, it's just a pure leaderboard of the top investors.
So you get seen. The visibility is based on success.
Yes. Yeah.
If you're shooting the moon, even on a small number, on a percentage basis, if you're really outperforming, you will get highlighted. People will see that. More people come in and track you.
Yes, and that's just V1. V2, V3, V4, we'll be able to. We're going to be breaking it down by risk score. We're going to be breaking it down by diversity of the different portfolios. We're going to be breaking it down by like ETFs only based funds, dividend only based funds. There's a lot that you can do from that pure first principle concept of the best people rise to the top, whether we like it or not. That's just the game that we're playing. We're not here to pick winners. We're here to just create a way for the winners to be showcased.
I love that. I mean, it's democratizing the ability to launch a hedge fund.
Exactly.
We've gone through the details, which would probably be boring for most people, but launching an ETF, these things, they're complicated. There's regulatory, there's timing. This allows you to shortcut all that and just get moving.
And, going back to the point of how big can it get, like I personally pick stocks. I enjoy doing it. I have my Autopilot trackers, but I still like to pick my own stocks. I got my buddies in my group chats. I got my girlfriend that follows my stock picks too. We have imagine a world where you can just share your personal stock picks with your friends.
I was going to say, does that feature, I wasn't around or tracking you guys when you were Iris. The idea of like an Instagram type following where I could see my cohort of people, what they're trading. Does that exist within the platform?
No, we're not social, and we don't want to be social.
I'm intrigued by that. Like, I'd love to be able to, to your point, it's hard to create another silo because people have where they're spending their time.
Yep.
If that could feed into my silos that I'm already spending time, it's a really intriguing thought on.
So
I'd love to see what your book is doing versus my
we have all that stuff. We don't have essentially the social layer of you can comment on my recent trade.
I don't even want to comment. I just want to see it.
So the big thing that I also think there's a massive void that Autopilot, that maybe we'll be able to do this. It's just hard to do all this at once. Is this idea of conviction-based investing? Like, I'm very much in the belief that conviction leads everything. Where if I'm looking at a strategy on Autopilot and I see one's up 50% and another one's up 50%, and they're both up because Micron stock is up 100% for the year, you'd want to know if they're guessing. It's like, did you just get lucky with that Micron pick, or did you have a full thesis driven behind why you picked that Micron stock? All the investors we have on the platform, they all have this thesis-driven investing. They're not just guessing what stocks they're picking. They have a specific reason why they own each individual stock. And with Autopilot, through what we're trying to do is I think they will bring more transparency and more thesis-driven conviction behind the stocks that they're picking, which makes the whole entire ecosystem healthier, because now when you're on Twitter, when you're on Reddit, when you're on Instagram, and you're seeing these people talk about their stocks, you can verify if they're actually good. And if they aren't sharing it on Autopilot, it's like, well, what are you hiding? Why are you not sharing this? You have 200,000 followers and you're charging 100 grand a year, or 10 grand a year to join your private chat groups. How do I even know if you're good? There's just this no layer of transparency into how the current social ecosystem is built around investing. And I think thesis driven conviction, the stuff that we were just chatting about, does solve that, like, in a major way.
100%. And so I don't know how much you can talk about, but on the roadmap of what's to come, what would be super intriguing is take Nancy Pelosi as one particular subset, very public, very known person who happens to be really good at trading. Two things. You could imagine celebrities. You could imagine like any, high visibility, well-known person. There's a big opportunity for them, for you on the platform. And back to when you started, you would be launching these platforms, these trackers yourself, almost as like if you're thinking about McDonald's as like a franchise, you have corporate owned stores and then you have franchises, right? And you bring in franchises with partnerships with people. The corporate owned, like you started, those are your trackers. As you pan out, there's one subset here that are people that are relative unknowns, but that are savants. They're great traders. Maybe it's the next Bill Ackman, the next Ken Griffith that are being discovered on the platform. Are there any other Nancy Pelosi types? Like, is Brad Pitt a, secretly amazing trader that's got his own book and then he's going to come on the platform? Like, is there
funny.
that? Is there any of that you could talk
That's
about?
a good
Or kind of where
question.
does that go?
So not that I know about. So funny enough, the Kyle Kuzma and Tristan Thompson from the NBA, they've gotten very active on Twitter in the last 2 days on stock picking.
Okay.
So I think that would be funny. Just to be like
anyone.
like,
There's
would
like
they be
Carmelo
good?
Anthony happens to be
Yeah.
like incredibly public, stock
Yeah,
trader.
there's not that many that I know of, to be honest. No celebrities in that world. What I think there are celebrities of, though, is this idea of I don't know if this is the right way to say this, but like the nerd out there, the AI PhD from Wharton,
Sure.
the YouTuber that is obsessed with his finances or things of that nature. I think that is like the route that we're trying to focus more on. We've seen in the past there have been apps that have gone the social investing route, the celebrity investment stuff. The hard part with that is you don't know if it's their actual picks. Where it's like, okay, you're LeBron and you got your portfolio up there. Is this actually your personal stock picks? Do you have any actual money in these strategies? Because I know you're really rich. You probably have someone doing it for you.
Sure.
So it's like, it's trying to bridge that gap of like the trust in the product of we just want to make sure everyone that uses our app knows that there's conviction and there's actual serious picking behind these strategies. Because if you lose that, then it turns a little bit into like a less
100%.
serious, fun idea.
You want to know that it's meaningful to them, that's actually their core of their trading.
Yeah.
It's not like some partnership that they're doing with a little bit of money and starting to pick some
Yeah.
stocks.
So like, I mean, we know all the agents. We know it's like, could we get an MBA guy to put up a portfolio? Like, probably.
Yeah.
But is anyone gonna am I gonna put 100 grand behind it? Like, probably not.
Yeah.
I think it's this balance of what we need to do. And the Nancy Pelosi one, like, that one's just so fascinating because there's conviction behind it. It's like she's buying these stocks with her own money, and it's really, really comforting to be like, okay, if she makes me money, hell yeah, let's run with it. If she loses me money, though, it's like, okay, well, at least she lost money with me. And I think that small little subtle piece of it, if they're losing, you're losing too, is important. And that's what we're trying to build more and more of the experience around through the platform.
So some of the trackers have gotten pretty big.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think people don't realize the amount of money someone could make from having their own successful tracker, defined as I'm already trading. I consider myself a good trader. I'm going to launch my own tracker with Autopilot, which allows people to invest behind my exact trades. And so I'm curious, I know you have several larger profile people on the platform. Like, what can this really mean for somebody? from a financial standpoint.
I mean, if you're picking stocks on a daily basis, you're sharing it on social media, it's life-changing amount of money if you can launch the portfolio and actually have it scale with performance. We only have around 30 to 40 pilots, and we've already done $5 million of payouts to those pilots. Some of our top guys, like, they're literally getting $150,000 checks every month. And it's like a year ago, they were sharing it on a Substack. It's like, okay, cool. You made $3,000 a month on your Substack.
Yeah.
Now you're making $150,000 a month just sharing your stock picks. And it does become life-changing. And I think like the opportunity of it to scale from there is like it creates the next aspiring Bill Ackmans, the next aspiring Warren Buffetts to be like, hey, you don't have to know really, really rich people to launch your own hedge fund and to make a lot of money. You now have this other alternative, Autopilot, where if you're good, you can just launch there. And, you know, I think we're on pace to have like 6 or 7 people by the end of this year be making upwards of $150,000 of MRR, of monthly revenue.
A month. So you cutting them a check for, let's say, $150K per month based on the size and success of their...
Yes, and the way that they get paid is just a simple revenue cut. So if I go in and I put 20 grand behind one of our top, like any of our top guys, and I pay a subscription fee of $300 a year, I'm fine with that because that 20 grand is going to grow. You know, $300 a year isn't really that much to not have to worry about this stuff. And then that pilot, the guy running the tracker, keeps around a certain amount of money of that. He keeps around like 50% or something of it. So for every user that comes in, he's making a cut of every subscription that comes, and then it compounds because people don't churn from this idea. Stock picking, investing is a long-term strategy. It's a long-term thing. It's not like they're going to churn away because your Substack gets boring. Yeah. They're just going to continue paying, and they're going to be happy with it. Yeah.
I think we call that doing well by doing good, right? Yeah. So if someone is that good at stock trading, why would they not want to open it up for people to be able to track them? And oh, by the way, they make money on that. As a per revenue share for everyone that tracks them, they get a piece of that from Autopilot.
Exactly.
And I guess the difference for you, we talked about, like, you don't want, this isn't like, oh, let's get Mr. Beast to launch his own tracker, or let's get, you know, Brad Pitt. That's fine. They're well known. Yeah. But what you want are the best savant stock pickers in the world, that their book actually returns incredibly well. That's the best case for both sides.
Exactly.
And then they get highlighted that they're doing well. More trackers come in. That's obviously good for you, the company, but it's good for the launcher of that tracker as well.
The other thing to think about here is like the average age of a paying client on Autopilot is like 36 years old. It's not a 22-year-old YOLO kid. It's a 36-year-old with 2 kids that doesn't have time to invest anymore. Yeah. To be able to trust that this AI PhD who went to Wharton, who's a university professor, who won the BlackRock stock picking challenges and all that stuff, is actually picking his stocks is, I think, extremely important for the platform, for the trust that goes behind it. And it's the difference of saying, hey, I'm going to invest $5,000 with this guy, and hey, I'm going to put $100,000 with this guy, because every day we have people coming in and putting $250K, $300K, $400K, $100K.
Sure.
It's not just small $1,000 investments. It's people putting in a meaningful amount of money, and the trust of knowing that that PhD actually is serious is important.
And you've integrated now with a lot of the large platforms.
Yep.
So people can effectively have their money with Robinhood, or you can name the other platforms where they can directly use their money that's within that wall.
Exactly.
To invest on Autopilot.
Yeah. So Robinhood, Schwab, Public is a partner of ours. We love them. eToro, I think we have now, and we're working on a couple others. Webull, but we got the big ones. The big one we're missing is Fidelity. We're still trying to get those guys. Are tough. They're going to take some time.
Well, I think we can transition. We always like to do a kind of a fast,
great.
Call it speed round, where I'll hit you with a question and hit me back with an answer, relatively short. I think with this one, we can kind of go right off the top with our friend Nancy. Have you met Nancy Pelosi?
No, never.
Never. If you met Nancy, what would you say to her?
Say, thanks for making our clients a lot of money. Keep picking your stocks. Or I would say, Yeah, so if I met Nancy, I would say, let me know your next stock pick. That would be another good one.
What's around the corner?
Yeah.
You kind of answered this, but in your view, should members of Congress be allowed to trade stocks?
No.
So you're a definitive no. Net better if they don't.
Yep, net better if they don't.
Do you find in investing that retail, in some senses, can be smarter than Wall Street?
Yes, absolutely. Especially now with AI, for sure.
Better growth strategy, being a growth guy, the product itself or the distribution?
I would say distribution, but the product has to be built to be distributed. But distribution still probably trumps product, to be honest.
Do you want to have the best product, but you need to have the best distribution?
You don't even need the best product.
You need a good enough product.
Yeah, you need a good enough product, but the more important piece to the product, especially early on, is that product can translate into distribution on social media.
Got it. It needs the bones to be able to be what you need it to be to distribute.
Yeah, so like Autopilot could have just been a stock picking app, but if it didn't have the Pelosi stock tracker product piece, it wouldn't have been able to translate on social media.
Yeah.
It would have been harder to cut through.
Love that. One thing that the internet gets completely wrong about investing.
That you can't outperform the market. I think there are people that can do it. I just think that it's just really hard to discover them. And there's this idea that no one can do it. Passive ETFs are the right way to do it. It's like, yes, I don't disagree with that. But there are people outperforming the market. I firmly believe it.
Has social media broken investing or enhanced investing in some way?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's enhanced investing with an asterisk.
Which is
you got to know at least like the person that you're following has the best intent for you. So in the past with GameStop and AMC, like that was at a time during social media where you wanted views and follows. Now it's like you need to build trust. So like the creators are actually taking it more seriously.
Makes sense. This one gets back to the ethos of Autopilot in general, but I'm curious your view. A lot of things in our lifetimes, and I loved your Elon quote of like the most interesting thing happens to be what works in his simulation theory. Has investing now become entertainment in some way?
I think it has because of this idea of it's your way out, especially for people like me and my age, or people younger than me. It's really hard to make enough money, quote unquote, with your 9-to-5 job. It's just hard. You need a side income. You need a passive thing if you want to buy a house by the time you're 30, you just have to. So I think the investing has become the entertainment piece of that because it's entertaining to see people make money and you want to try and do that. I don't think that's necessarily healthy, but I think that is a piece of it now for sure.
It actually brings up an interesting question. How do you see Autopilot as opposed to Polymarket and Kalshi, where a lot of the same demo spends a lot of time, invests capital?
I see Autopilot as Polymarket and Kalshi without the sports. I think the sports aspect to Polymarket and Kalshi makes it sports betting. But I think the non-sports angle is conviction-driven investing. Like if you have conviction that, I don't know, Marco Rubio is going to be the president by 2028, you should be able to put your money behind your conviction. I think with Autopilot, if you have conviction that Apple's going to be the first company to hit $10 trillion, you should have the ability to invest behind that conviction. So I think they are similar.
That's an interesting, similar demo. Today, the most powerful person on finance Twitter.
Amit invests. Yeah, have you heard of him?
No.
I think he's young. He understands the dynamic of how social media works. He doesn't sell out to his audience, and he's been really good at stock picking. He was early in Robinhood. He was early in Palantir. Okay. And he's, I think, just been this authentic voice that is parsed through. And he's also not anonymous. Not being anonymous, I think, is key.
Does he have a tracker today?
No.
What's going on?
He's an investor in us, but we've tried to get him. He just doesn't want to sell
Amit,
a product.
Come on, Amit. We gotta get I want to follow his.
I would put a lot of money behind him. I think he just doesn't want to. Maybe we'll get there one day, but he doesn't want to sell out. He doesn't. I don't think he sells anything his audience.
I don't consider it selling out. I consider it helping.
Yeah, selling out's the wrong way. He doesn't sell any products to.
He doesn't want to monetize.
Yeah, he doesn't want to monetize. The other guy is Chris Camillo in the social arb investing community.
Okay.
He would be a really interesting pilot, I think, because he has this conviction in ways that people don't have it. And to go back to your initial question of like, can Main Street outperform Wall Street? I think they can, and he's an example of that.
I feel like the reality is if they can build their own book, allow others to track that book, they obviously have conviction and they've obviously continued to do well. So there's a little bit of maybe holdback on wanting that to be fully visible.
Yeah.
And maybe some reticence to having people, you're putting other people's money at risk.
Yeah.
Like I used to work at a family office where, in that instance, it was much more comfortable for us to use our own capital and win or lose our own capital than have other people's money coming in where you feel that pressure.
Yeah, you can't deny that there's a piece to that with Autopilot for sure.
But I think the flip side of it, if you do have a definitive advantage, which it sounds like these two guys probably do, opening that up and allowing people to benefit from that.
Yeah. And I think the way that I answer that, because like I talk with pilots all the time that like, oh, do I want that? And it's like, look, like, trust me, I run these social media accounts. These people, like the retail investors, like they would love to do this because right now they have no conviction. They're guessing. And without you launching a platform, even if you lose them money, they would have probably lost more money without you kind of thing. And I see that all the time when I chat with our clients. It's like, look, yeah, I lost 10%, but at least I didn't lose 20, like there's a reality to that piece too.
Right. Yeah, there's some comfort, at least for me, on if things are going down, I have commitment to the tracker that someone's looking at it, figuring it out and rebalancing it, right? So I don't have to freak out and sell it at the bottom, which I've done. I did that during COVID. Yeah. On the AI piece, part of what AI is disrupting is the lack of transparency. And so it's really creating a situation where more things are more transparent. Is there a world where that affects the market in such a way that this stock picking almost becomes irrelevant? Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah, we have. So Robinhood yesterday actually just launched their sort of like agentic trading where AI can trade for you. And I'm not as bullish on it because I think, like, again, I go back to the first principle idea of conviction. If you are having AI invest for you and AI puts you in 6 or 7 stocks and they lose you money, like, I don't think that, like, you're going to say to yourself, like, well, how does this AI work? Like, does this AI just pick, like, does this AI even know anything about this stuff? I think there's got to be confidence in the AI, the way that the AI was built, in the way that it was specifically tuned for stock trading that can translate into the everyday person. And I don't know if it will ever get to that point. I think there has to be some sort of human element to it to make it comfortable for the masses.
That's interesting because it's all good when it's up and to the right. And if it's crushing for you, you're like, this is amazing. As soon as it's down, you start to question and unwind it. And there's no human connection to go back to.
Yeah, and so, like, I mean, if you go in Robinhood or you go into Public, I think they have this stuff now, and it buys you 8 stocks and it loses you 20%. What are you going to think? You're going to think like, well, why'd you choose those 20? Like, you're supposed to be the smart AI. Why'd you choose those 20? I think if there was a human behind it, there's an element of like, all right, well, this human tuned it in a certain way. He's just going to change up the tuning of it. I think that human element will never really go away with the pure money aspect. I think that's important.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, we invested in a company called Athena that Jonathan was on the pod. The idea of the one-to-one connection with your human EA. And then, do a lot of agentic stuff behind that. The travel, the this, the that, plug in agentic solutions. But in that instance, you still want the one-to-one connection as air traffic control to then route back. I think that's going to be true in a lot of cases. As AI develops, you're still going to want that connection, on the human side, which is controversial. If you were not building Autopilot, what would you be building?
I'd probably have a different company. I don't like to work for. If I'm going to work all these hours, I'd rather do it for something that I own, something that I can kind of make my own hours on, something that I can, be a big voice, a big part of.
It's a true entrepreneur. Any other categories that you've gotten excited about?
Funny enough, it's been finance and like the B2B SaaS side of churches. I've always been fascinated with that because I think there's a lot of money that you can be made in the quiet, unsexy businesses. And I don't know what church is. I don't know what like who's in charge of making sure that they're AI native, they know what they're doing, they have their finances in order. I'm sure there are people that do it. There's a couple companies that do it, but I think it's an industry that you can do a lot of good in, and you also can make a lot of money in.
So you said just got a B2B SaaS for churches.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
No, I know. But again, like I love the idea of just doing things differently. Like just not like the Pelosi tracker is such a different idea that at the time I don't think anyone would have done it. They would have. It was just so different. I think the B2B church side is just a different thing.
Yeah, I've thought about stuff in water, like clean water. I'm like a nut on health and wellness stuff. So it's easy for me to go down rabbit holes on functional health or
that one's gotten very popular. Function Health, Superpower, the peptides.
Early investors in Function, which
nice,
has been crushing.
Yeah, they're killing it. And they have a whole tailwind coming their way.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, last question. Dead or alive? Can't pick Nancy Pelosi because you already have. What human would you be excited to launch a tracker with that would outperform Pelosi on a relative basis?
I think the intelligent investor, Benjamin Graham. I think that would be a great one.
You think that would outperform like net?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think because he has this idea of how do I say this? He has this idea of not getting emotional, I think, with all this stuff. And I think today's day and age, there's so much emotion that's going into investing that he would be the outlier that would be able to stay consistent to his pattern, the way that he does things. And over time, I think that would crush. I think the biggest problem that people are running into now is, like, if you think about, like, why do hedge funds lose? It's because they have to overtrade because they have to beat the SPY to make the money, but the SPY is going up because Apple and Nvidia and Google. It's just hard. I think the people that can stick to their discipline over time will outperform. And I think he would be a good pilot to do that.
Can we get that done?
I have no idea, honestly. So I was thinking, funny enough, this is years ago, I thought about the idea of finding out a way to tune an AI language learning model into personas.
I was just thinking, like, you should be able to recreate that persona, which I've seen many iterations of just on the private venture side.
Yeah,
for different use cases.
You should connect me with someone on that. I know that there was a company called Delphia down in Miami.
Okay.
They're backed by Founders Fund. I would love to explore that idea if it's possible.
They're starting to, so a couple things. I met a company that creates a personal persona for you. Any company that's getting into AI that wants to be able to make improvements to their business function, the first step is always data, cleaning up the data. You have to have good data to make good data decisions. LLMs require good data to make good data decisions. So on the business side, this has become a cottage industry of service providers. We come in, we help you sort your data, clean it up, then you can plug in Claude or plug in OpenAI, Codex. On the personal side, I was talking to you before we hit go today on the filming, but I just onboarded a new EA. I'm realizing that there's a J-curve for me on cleaning up all the data that I'm trying to make efficient, right? And so what some of these companies are doing is creating that like digital passport of you so that when you plug into new instances, new AI,
you don't have to go through
you don't have to go through all this stuff. Like, it knows you. It has enough about you. And by the way, that grows over time, right? So that becomes such a sticky spot. And so someone's going to get that right. And someone bigger is probably going to buy them for getting it right.
That's why I own a ton of Apple, because I think Apple's
sitting on a ton of cash. They're going to have to make some moves. But what that also does is it allows you to, in some cases I've seen, recreate personas, living and deceased, and create like a virtual reality of that person, right? So imagine in 5 or 10 years, it'll probably be relatively common for you to have a digital persona of people in your life that have since passed that you can revisit, talk to, etc. Like there's a whole industry sitting behind that as well.
Yeah. Yep.
But trading wise, it should be actually almost an easier book to build.
I was about to connect me with a couple of the people.
Okay.
I would love, because I think that is a cool idea. I don't know how legal it is, but because compliance, we got
the rights depending on how directly you're doing it.
And with the SEC, like the SEC, rightfully so, will be wary of AI for a while, just because there will be a lot of bad actors that don't use it right to scam people.
100%.
So
awesome. I think that's it. Great having you on, man. Great to see you.
Appreciate it.
Congrats on the success.
Thank you.
Let's get some of those Twitter guys to launch those trackers.
Oh, for real. We'll get them.
Awesome. Cool.